My name is Jack. I'm a soldier, or at least I was until that day. I lived it like a dream, or rather, like a nightmare. But it was neither. The truth is, I died. I died in a remote corner of a foreign land while doing what I had sworn to do: defend my country. Yet what happened after my death, what I saw, changed everything I believed about war, death, and above all, life. It was a morning like many others in Iraq. We had received orders to check a small village a few kilometers from our base. The reports were unclear. The presence of rebel militia was certain, but we didn't know how many or how well armed they were. I had been on missions many times before, and I had learned to live with fear. But that morning, something was wrong. A premonition, a sense of oppression I couldn't shake off. We moved silently between the houses, with the sun beating down fiercely on our heads. The tension was palpable. Every shadow, every suspicious movement could be a threat, and then it happened. A sharp, precise shot. I heard the whiz of the bullet even before I felt the pain. My chest exploded in a wave of heat and blood. I fell to the ground, my rifle slipping from my hands as the world around me became more distant, blurred. The sound of battle was muffled, as if I were underwater. And then, darkness. I don't know how much time passed. Maybe seconds, maybe minutes, maybe hours. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't there anymore. I wasn't on the ground. I wasn't in Iraq. I found myself in a strange place, a boundless desert, endless. There were no sounds, just an eerie silence that enveloped me. I looked around, trying to figure out where I was. It was hell, I was sure of it. The sky was grim, a sickly gray, and everything seemed motionless, suspended in an unreal time. Then I saw them, soldiers from every era, from every nationality. Some wore uniforms I had never seen before. Others had primitive weapons, swords, bows. They all had the same empty, lost look. They wandered aimlessly, some dragging themselves, others fighting each other for no apparent reason. It was an eternal battlefield, an infinite cycle of death and destruction. As I tried to orient myself, I saw someone approaching. He was a tall man, sturdy, with a long black beard and dark, piercing eyes. He wore a uniform I recognized immediately, the British Army uniform, but it wasn't modern. It was the uniform of soldiers from World War I. He stared at me, and there was an ancient pain in his eyes. "Who are you?" I asked him, my voice cracked with fear and confusion. "John Steele," he replied, his voice low and hoarse. "You're one of us now." "One of you? What do you mean? Where am I? What is this place?" Steele shook his head. "It's not easy to explain. You're dead, or at least you're near death. This is the soldier's hell. This is where we all end up, sooner or later. Those who commanded, those who fought and killed. There is no end to this place, no peace, only endless battles." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is hell?" "Yes, for us it is. Every war, every battle brings us here, and we're trapped in this cycle of violence with no chance of redemption." As his words sank into my mind, I saw other figures approaching. They were 3 men, each with a stern and imposing air. The first wore a uniform with a tricorn hat and a sharp gaze. The second man was older, with a long white beard and a severe expression. He wore a tunic. The third man was closer to me in both time and culture. He wore a uniform with a medal pinned to his chest. Each military leader spoke to me about their experiences, their victories and defeats, and how, in the end, nothing made sense. Steele told me that every soldier, every commander, was condemned to remain there, stuck in this endless cycle where war raged on without reason, without purpose. And me? What am I doing here? I asked, my voice trembling. I'm not like you. I didn't command armies. I didn't lead campaigns of conquest. But you're part of this cycle, Steele said. As we all are. You died fighting, and now you're here. But there's still a chance for you. A chance none of us had. Before I could respond, I felt a different presence. A light pierced through the shadows of hell. A figure approached, radiant, full of peace. It was Jesus. I couldn't see him clearly, but I felt his presence, his goodness. You don't belong to this place, he said with a calm and reassuring voice. Not yet. There is a truth you need to know before you return. What truth? I asked, feeling small and insignificant before him. That war has no winners. No one ever wins in a war. There are only the dead, only destruction. This cycle will continue until humanity understands that there is no victory in violence, only loss. He showed me a vision of the future, a devastated world without life, without hope, cities destroyed, people dead. There was no peace, only death everywhere. It was a possible future, a future that would happen if wars didn't cease. There will never be a war that brings peace. There will never be a final victory. There will only be death, bloodshed, and in the end, destruction. Those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Everything I had believed in, everything I had fought for, seemed to crumble in an instant. I looked around, seeing those men, those generals, those soldiers who had dedicated their lives to war, and now were condemned to relive that suffering for eternity. Steele stared at me with an empty gaze, as if he knew exactly what I was feeling. Jesus, why did you show me this? I asked, unable to hold back the tears welling up. I want you to know the truth, Jesus replied, coming closer to me. What you have lived through, what you have seen here, is not your fate. You can still return. You can still change your path. Suddenly, I felt lifted and propelled with overwhelming force, passing through a tunnel of light. The speed was incredible, but instead of fear, I felt a deep calm. I found myself in a place that radiated peace, completely different from the chaos I had known. In front of me, in that light, was Jesus. His gaze was full of compassion, and with a gentle voice, he told me I had a second chance, that I could go back. Inside, I was still convinced that wars were necessary, that they brought good. I believed that my service and the sacrifices I had made had a purpose. But with a simple gesture, Jesus showed me the truth. Images of destruction, pain, and suffering flashed before my eyes. Every life lost, every tear shed for war was shown to me in all its rawness. Only then did I understand the evil I had helped to create, the devastation that war always brings. I fell at his feet, my heart crushed with shame and guilt. I felt small and miserable, fully aware of how wrong I had been. I was wrong, I whispered, tears falling. It seemed impossible to make up for what I had done. Jesus looked at me with infinite compassion and said, "Now you know. You can't change the past, but you can decide what to do from now on." And with those words, I felt relieved, knowing I still had a choice, to live for peace and no longer for war. I woke up suddenly with a muffled scream. I was back. I was in my body again, on the battlefield in Iraq. My comrades surrounded me, confused and scared. The battalion doctor was working frantically to stop the bleeding. I felt the sharp pain in my chest, but I knew there was something else, something deeper. that would never heal. I returned to the UK after months of rehabilitation, but I was no longer the same man. Jesus' words, the visions of the generals, the devastation I had seen gave me no peace. Every time I heard of a new conflict, a new war, I felt suffocated. I could no longer see the glory of war, only its senseless horror. I retired from the army. I could no longer serve in a force that I now saw as part of the cycle of destruction I had known. I began to speak publicly against war, to tell my story. Many didn't believe me. Others looked at me with suspicion, but some understood. They knew I had seen something terrible, something that couldn't be forgotten. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. The message Jesus left me is clear. War never brings peace, only destruction and suffering. It is crucial that this message reaches as many people as possible so that everyone can understand how much harm war does and how important it is to choose peace. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to share it. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with Amen if you feel this message has deep meaning for you. I will be immensely grateful to you for spreading the word of peace.